couple of things that happened south of us. So again, so we talk about all the distribution. We have Walmart, we have Target. And by the way, Walmart just built a 2 million square feet in Shippensburg. They're building 2 million square feet in Greencastle. Okay? And the facility in Greencastle will employ, when fully operational, which will probably open next year, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people. It is a big, big deal. So if you're driving down 81, if you ever get the opportunity to do that, you can't miss it. It's you're going to drive down, you're going to see other buildings being built. You're going to drive by Blaze Alexander, and right beside Blaze Alexander is you're going to see this massive facility. That's Walmart. But going further down, if you go down to, if you're familiar with the Valley Mall in Hagerstown, I don't know if any of you are, right beside the Valley Mall. So if you get off at Halfway Boulevard, you go east into the mall. If you go west, you go down, you go west, okay? Right, you go about half a mile down there. Hitachi Rail is going to be building a manufacturing plant. It's under construction right now. They build the rail cars for the metro system. And they'll hire about 500 people. And I think they want to be open in late 2023, early 2024. But again, the point is that we are all tied economically as one region. And from a Franklin County perspective, we track what's going on in our county, what's going on south of us, what's going on north of us. As I mentioned, Cumberland County is the fastest growing county in the state. The Carlisle area exploded and continues to do well. Then you get to Carlisle to Harrisburg, up through Mechanicsburg, and so there's a lot of activity going on that way as well. So, but it provides for some interesting development that is taking place. And by the way, one of the things that I do want to mention is when we look at our growth and to the public, and I get this question a lot. Can we do anything other than distribution? You know, and we're concerned about the quality of jobs that are being created in the distribution network. If you get a chance, and you can take your class through a FedEx facility up in Newville, or down in Hagerstown, or what have you, take the opportunity to do it. Okay, you'll be amazed at how big. You see these facilities driving down the road, they're massive. You go inside of them and they look twice that big. I mean, you're overwhelmed. But when you see the technology being deployed, okay, when you have 5 million packages going through a FedEx terminal every day, and they're all coming to your house, or to the right house the next day, it's remarkable technology. So those jobs that are being created aren't all as mundane as one would think. Having said that, not all of them are, you know, are rocket science and the like, but to pay for these jobs anymore. I mean, it's not unusual that you can go out and make $25 an hour at any of the warehouses. Mark's Potato Roll, which is right beside our office, and they manufacture the potato rolls that you eat. Everybody eat Mark's Potato Rolls? Like them? Pretty good, aren't they? You ever eat any better? See, that's, you say no. No, they are really, they don't call them hot dog rolls, they call them long rolls. They call it a hamburger roll, sandwich roll, really. But no, we don't care about that. We get to smell Martins every day. But you know what, I don't smell it anymore. It's like, I used to live in Hershey at one point. I never smelled, the only time I smelled the chocolate was like on Tuesday, I didn't smell the chocolate, I smelled peanut butter. And for like a year, I couldn't figure out, what the hell is that smell? And it's like, somebody, I don't know if they're roasting peanut, they're making like peanut butter cups beyond my wildest dreams. And I was too stupid to figure that out. It has nothing to do with anything. But what I was going to tell you is, Mark's Potato Rolls on weekends, $34 to $42 an hour, okay, to work at Martin's. So if anybody's looking for a part-time job, You should call those people. These are, they're not asking to run the company. They're asking to bake bread. Okay, so, and so I'm just telling you that, what's going on here. And again, I'm gonna come back to the whole labor situation, but my point where I was going with all this, and nobody has any idea what point I could possibly be trying to make, okay? And if you're from Germany, you say, oh my God, I traveled 3,000 miles for this. And it's like, I'm sorry about that. You can reflect on the flight home, okay? I learned absolutely nothing. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Help me out. No, it's, but again, when you drive up and down 81, what you're gonna see is a lot of distribution, people complaining about, we don't need any more million-square-foot distribution centers in our area. We think that it has issues with, visual land, the viewscape, and it does. But all of this has been pretty well planned. When the development that's occurring along 81 is close to interstate interchanges, it's taking advantage of infrastructure that's available, and typically we're not directing traffic into our communities. We're trying to get it all onto the interstate with as minimal impact as possible. But if you go off of 81, you're going to see a different part of Franklin County and Cumberland County. What you're going to see, agriculture is still a big deal in Franklin County, especially dairy farming and orchard industry. We're big with, everybody loves Chambersburg peaches, but the fruit industry is big. We're the #2 producer of milk in the state. And if you, especially in the western side of Franklin County, over the Mercersburg area, some of the premier farmland in Pennsylvania. It's absolutely the equal of Lancaster County. There's just not as much of it in our county, but it's great agriculture. There's manufacturing in every community. The biggest manufacturing employer in Franklin County, believe it or not, is not Volvo. It's Manitowoc Crane Group down in Shady Grove in Antrim Township. Manitowoc, if you drive down, if you see bridge construction going on anywhere, you see Grove Cranes or National Cranes, and you're gonna see them everywhere. They're made in Shady Grove. That's Manitowoc Crane Group. As I said, largest manufacturing employer. The biggest, probably the largest manufacturing footprint in our area is JLG, who's headquartered now in Hagerstown, but they have location in Greencastle, in Shippensburg, and their real operations over in McConnellsburg, as well as Bedford, further west. But JLG manufactures the man lifts that you see everywhere. You'll see them all around the world. And then you have Volvo Construction Equipment here in Shippensburg. This is the headquarters. Their North American headquarters are located right here in Shippensburg, and that's a big deal. And they relocated their headquarters out of Asheville, North Carolina, and brought them up here, and that was a culture shock for them. Asheville has this idea, it's like one of the most artsy communities in the country, and they was like, we got the Shippensburg. Where do we eat? Okay, so we built them a hotel. And that's why, in part, the reason you had the Marriott Courtyard was to support Volvo. But you have companies like over in Mercersburg, and Mercersburg's home to the 15th President of the United States, J.P. Kennedy, only President from Pennsylvania. Do you know that?
I think I actually do.
Okay, that's good. You know who his first lady was? It was his niece, Harriet Lane. He was, so that's just a little Mercersburg trivia, okay? So, but Mercersburg has a company called D.L. Martin, which fabricates parts for companies like JLG and Volvo and the like. And Mercersburg's community is 1,700 people. JLG or D.L. Martin employs about 200 people. But interestingly, over in Mercersburg, which is right outside Mercersburg, is where the Whitetail Ski Resort is. Herbruck, it's called Blue Spring Egg Farm now, but it's a company called Herbruck Poultry Ranch. Literally is opening an egg laying facility over there. which they just spent $100 million in investing in Mercersburg, where they will have 2.2 million chickens, okay? No odor. They have a process where the chickens, the manure is pelletized as it comes out of the plant. It looks like, literally looks like rabbit food when it's done. All the manure is already sold. It's an organic operation. The manure is sold as an organic fertilizer. They've got outlets around the world. Herbruck, if you eat an egg McMuffin east in the Mississippi, you're eating a Herbruck egg. They have a contract with McDonald's that they produce all the eggs for McDonald's east of the Mississippi. So it is a big deal. And again, what it highlights that it's not distribution, it's manufacturing, or not manufacturing, it's agriculture. And they're here because, interestingly, I asked them why, they're based in Michigan. I said, what brought you here? And the other outlet they have is Costco. They said Costco demanded we have to be here. They wanted a production plant in this part of the world to serve their stores. And it's such a big deal for them to have a relationship with Costco that they are here today. And we're happy about it. They are unlike any company we've ever dealt with. They are incredibly transparent. But it's interesting, if you work for Herbruck, you cannot own a bird of any kind, because they are, biosecurity is the issue of the day. And at this point, they had a ribbon cutting back in mid-August. And at that point, that was the last time they will let the public onto the site. They need to know where the traffic in and out. If you were to visit a chicken farm, they'll dress you up like you're going on a moon landing. Do we have water anywhere?
Yeah.
Probably do somewhere on the campus, but
Let me get you a cup.
if there's anything close, it would be helpful. But anyway, yeah, but it is a fabulous operation, and so we're happy. They'll hire about 200 people, and they're staffing up right now. But again, it's those kinds of projects when you get off of 81 that you'll start to see dotting the whole area. And the point of this is, from an economic development strategy, we are trying to diversify the economy. We never want to be dependent on any one industry, thank you, or any one industry, any one company or any one industry sector. When I came to Franklin County, and I'll talk about Letterkenny, the two biggest employers in the county were Grove Manufacturing, which is now Manitowoc Crane Group, and the Letterkenny Army Depot. And at the time, in the mid-'80s, Grove was talking about relocating out of Greencastle down to South Carolina, where they eventually did build a second production plant. And Letterkenny is always volatile. I mean, it's been an anchor since 1942, but we've gone through base realignment and closure action that have reduced the size of it, and we're always concerned about what could happen. And if anything happened to any one of those companies, it would have a devastating effect on our whole operation here. And so, excuse me, I apologize for that, but you're gonna have to deal with it. I'm gonna have to deal with it. It's not COVID, but we don't think. So, no, it's not. The president just said it's over. So you can't get it anymore. But anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, something. What was I talking about? Have any idea?
Diversifying.
Yeah, we are trying to diversify for reasons we don't understand. No, we do understand. But no, we don't want to be dependent on any one industry or any one industry sector. But I say, if when times are good, when you have that big employer, and we saw this in different locations, when times are good, when you have that dependent, you have that one, could be a Ford plant out in Cleveland, or in Detroit or wherever, and everybody, it's great. When something happens and they lay off or it has a devastating effect, we don't want that to happen here. We want to make sure that we are trying to create as much economic diversity as we can. And that also goes to the point, we want to make sure we are supporting the startup of small businesses. And that is so important to any kind of economic development strategy. And I always talk about that in the context, Apple didn't start out the way they are, okay? Volvo didn't, they all started as small businesses. And in Franklin County, the oldest continuously operating business, do you know what it is? Mr. Chambersburg? It's been operating since 1857. TB Woods. TB Woods is operating. TB Woods started out as a startup business. If you've seen Brymar Trailers, they started out in the 80s as a startup business. Manitowoc, John Grove started both Grove Manufacturing and JLG, two publicly traded companies today. They all started as small business. So it's important that we create that entrepreneurial spirit and development here. And and I'm going to compliment the university. The entrepreneurial programs here, the school of business, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So if you're interested, and I know presumably, are they all geography majors?
We have some geography, we've got some sustainability, we've got some economics majors, I think I've got a supply chain.
In any case, within your chosen field of study, there could be new technologies you want to try to promote or develop, or you see different ways of doing things, and it could create a business opportunity. That's important, and so organizations like ours are designed to help you find the investors or the resources to be able to help with that startup. And I'm a big proponent. If you're working in that direction at all, there's a small business development center on campus that can help with business plans. I suggest you take advantage of all that. But again, so startup is important, and so I will go back to what we do. So hopefully, so we try to diversify the economy to the best we can. So at FCADC, one of the things we try to do, I mentioned in our mission, is we try our first and foremost, we get a lot of notoriety for new businesses that locate in the area. And the issue with that is everybody thinks that's our primary purpose. And so if a Walmart comes in, or Herbruck's or whomever, they see that as our major role. It's not. What we try to do, our focus is on how do we support the businesses already here. The companies that have invested here, like the TB Woods in 1857, if they are looking to grow, invest in new facilities, in new machinery and equipment, we provide the resources that allow them to do that. We want to keep our business, our operating model is no different than a business operating model. We want to retain the customers that we have. We want to try to selectively attract new customers. And in our case, where we can help folks start businesses so that they're investing in Franklin County, that's what we want to do. But we spend a lot of time going out and talking to companies about what their needs are, how we can support their growth. We operate some revolving loan funds so we act as a bank in some cases. We have relationships with financial institutions that can help support those financing needs. We have a site location component so we can find buildings and sites that will allow for companies to expand or grow. But that's a big focus of what we do. So that's very, very important to us. And that will always be, and by the way, we've been doing this, we have never changed our mission. So, so let me, where are we at? About 5 after 4, we got like 2 hours to go. So anyway, because I do want, where I can go with this, I want to allow you to ask questions. Let me talk a little bit about Letterkenny, and then I want to take questions. So, I want to start by saying, I mentioned the biggest manufacturing employer in the county is Manitowoc Crane Group. The biggest employer in Franklin County is WellSpan. healthcare has become a major component of our local economy. And in Franklin County, York County, Adams County, it will always be a big deal. Pennsylvania does not tax retirement income. And I know when you're at your age, you're thinking, so what's the big deal? The big deal is our proximity to the, especially to the beltway. A lot of federal government retirees in particular, upon retirement, will relocate to one of those 3 counties because it's more cost effective for them to do so. So you're moving here anywhere between 55 and 70 years old. And so those healthcare needs are always gonna be a part of the aging process. And so healthcare is always gonna be if you look at our retirement communities, be it Mental Haven, Quincy, Shookholm, and Franklin County, those are 3 of the major ones. Providence Place, they always do well, they're always filled, and they're always looking to expand. And that's part of the reason. If you're familiar with Penn National Golf Course and residential community, it's been rated one of the 50 best places in the country to retire. So again, they actively market the DC area. Again, but healthcare is gonna be a big deal. WellSpan is the biggest employer in the county. Second biggest employer is Letterkenny. The Letterkenny Army Depot is is a major economic driver. Okay, it's been an economic driver since it opened in 1942. Today, the depot encompasses about 18,500 acres. It does a lot of air and missile defense work. During the Iraq and Afghanistan conflict, Letterkenny was also doing a lot of up-armoring of Humvees and the like. So they do a lot of fabrication. It's a major industrial complex. Today, during the height of those conflicts, it was employed about 3,600, 3,700 people. Today, we're at about 2,800 people. There has been a reduction because we've gone from surge back down to normal workloads. But it's one of 2 places in the world where Patriot missiles are recalibrated. And Patriot missiles are one of the major defense systems that we use for missile defense. The depot, again, is important. What's interesting to me, and when we look at Interstate 81, we're trying to make, one of the challenges we have is trying to get a 3rd lane onto Interstate 81. It is a very congested highway, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in a 50-mile stretch, you have 5 major military installations. You have the Letterkenny Army Depot in Shippensburg. You have the Carlisle, the Army War College in Carlisle. You have what I refer to as the Navy Ship Park Control Center in Mechanicsburg. You have the New Cumberland Army Depot, and you have Fort Indian Town Gap, all in a 50-mile stretch. That's important for our national defense. They are economic drivers throughout South Central Pennsylvania. If you took out the Department of Defense, it would have a more devastating impact than if you close state government. Because there are thousands of people employed. There are thousands of direct employment and indirect employment. It's a big deal. And obviously Letterkenny is a part of that. Letterkenny has forged relationships with the university, because again, they're looking to hire a wide variety of folks in management, accounting, legal, the whole gamut. But the depot, and I think you read the economic impact analysis of the depot. It is more than significant. It's vital. I would argue that every community in the state, or not in the state, in the country, would want a Letterkenny. Because these are the folks that have disposable income because their pay rates are such that they have disposable income, they can reinvest back into the community. And it's important. From 1,400, in 1995, Letterkenny was realigned through what was referred to as the base, through a BRAC action, that's the acronym. It's the Base Realignment and Closure Commission. Realigned Letterkenny, that's the congressional action to look at installations across the country and figure out whether they should be expanded, closed, or consolidated in some way. Letterkenny was downside, that was at 20,000 acres, today, as I mentioned, 18,500. So almost 1,500 acres were turned over to the community. And it was turned over to the community at no cost, which is, and I say that, I mentioned earlier, we are now part of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Statistical Area. At the time, in 1995, we weren't aligned with any statistical area. So it was known as an economic development conveyance. If you're familiar with the area at all, just east of Waynesboro, at the top of the mountain, at Blue Ridge Summit, is Fort Ritchie. Fort Ritchie provided electronic support to the underground Pentagon. I don't know how familiar, to know that how close Camp David is to here. Camp David is like 20 miles outside of Waynesboro. And so when the president's in, the fighter jets are circling Waynesboro all the time. Nobody ever thought that Fort Ritchie could be closed. At 11th hour action in BRAC 95, Fort Ritchie, Letterkenny was realigned, Fort Ritchie was closed. Fort Ritchie was part of the Washington Metropolitan Statistical Area. So the county had to pay to buy it from the federal government, and it really affected the redevelopment. We're 26 years later, or 27, whatever it is, what would be 20-something, 95 to 2022, whatever that is, a lot of years. It is, Fort Ritchie is now finally has a redevelopment plan that's been implemented. Letterkenny from the beginning, and starting in 1998, the redevelopment started. It's been redeveloped. Those 1,400 acres have effectively been almost fully redeveloped at this point. There are about 47 or 48 businesses in the private sector located at Letterkenny that range from ag to manufacturing to clothing. It's a hodgepodge, but it has really worked very, very effectively. Also, interestingly, during the Iraqi-Afghanistan surges, as I mentioned, the federal government gifted the land and the buildings to what is known to the county, and the county created an authority to manage that for them, the Letterkenny Industrial Development Authority. So if you ever hear the term LIDA is L-I-D-A, it's the Letterkenny Industrial Development Authority, and managing. But LIDA inherited about a little over 1 million square feet and 90,000 square foot building. They ended up leasing the land back to the Army, or leasing those buildings back to the Army. So this is your tax dollars at work. They gave us the property, and then they became our biggest tenant. So they were paying to get the project, everything back. It's go figure, but from locally, it was great. If you look at it from more of a macro perspective and the cost savings of a base realignment and closure action, it doesn't make any sense. Also, we are, again, 27 years into BRAC 95. Everything in BRAC 95 was to have been accomplished by 2001, okay? Not all the land has yet transferred from the Army to the Letterkenny Industrial Development. It's transferred in phases. It has to be environmentally clean before it can get certified to be transferred. So we are still awaiting the last it's a small parcel, but the last transfers have not yet been conveyed to LIDA. But so if you aggregate the Army with 2,800 people and another 1,000 people working for the private sector as an employment center, the depot is the largest employment center in Franklin County. There's about anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 people. Now, again, interestingly, and that's a lot of people, during the height of the Vietnam War, there were over 6,000 people who worked at Letterkenny. So it's a big deal now, not as big a deal as it once was. So, but again, we're also more diverse today, and that was part of the whole diversity discussion. So let me, so we've experienced a lot of growth, and we're gonna, and that's gonna come, by the way, one of the, if you're, major development project that you'll be aware of it, and Scott, so to be aware, on 81, we continually talk about a new lane. And one of the most discouraging things to me, and I want to start talking about challenges that we're facing. I-81 is both our lifeblood and it's an albatross around our neck. It is a very dangerous highway at this point. And it really creates a lot of supply chain disruption when there's an accident. And every day there's going to be an accident between Harrisonburg, Virginia, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that's going to delay traffic and companies being able to move their supply chain up and down the interstate. That's a problem for us. We've been lobbying for a new lane to make it a 6-lane interchange since 2001. We've done study after study, have paid literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, 4 studies to be done. We had PennDOT in my office back in March of this year, March 22nd to be specific. And the PennDOT district engineer who oversees South Central Pennsylvania, we were so disappointed because Congress had just passed the Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Creation Act just a couple weeks before. Pennsylvania is to receive $13 billion of additional money for highway construction. We're not on PennDOT's radar for a widening. We're not on the radar. If they were to say today that somehow we're reversing our decision and we're gonna allocate money and you're gonna get your lane from state line to the King Street exit, 29 miles of I-81, and the last 3 miles in Cumberland County, and that makes me mad. But I'm gonna give them, we're gonna go to Cumberland County, enemy territory. But you wouldn't see construction, probably, it's 2022, probably to 2032, 2033, till all the environmental studies are done, right-of-ways are acquired, design work is done, and it is a process. I say that because in 2024, PennDOT's going to let a contract for a new interchange to be built in Franklin County at mile marker 12. So it's Guilford Springs Road. If you're familiar with the Target Distribution Center, it's going to be right there, and it's going to create what's going to do. It's going to open up 500 acres for more distribution, but it's going to create some more effective traffic patterns, we think, internally. That project started in 2008. Okay, it'll get built. The contract will be let in 2024, February 2024, as of right now, and so it'll probably be completed end of 2025. Okay, so that's one. It's an interchange going southbound. Okay, it's not going to be a full interchange coming the other way. So that's the timing it takes to get to that time. For anybody who lives over in New York area off of 83, they're doing construction over there. That process started, to my understanding, 2005 with studies, and so it just takes forever. So if you're looking for, you'll be grandparents before you're going to see a new lane on Interstate 81, and that's unfortunate because the process takes on. Having said, we need to get in queue. I mean, if it takes that long, it takes that long. But if we're not in the queue, then every year we're dragging it out further. So that's going to be a real issue for So let me tell you some of the major challenges that we're facing in the area. The biggest challenge that we see from an economic development standpoint, and this is it's a national problem, but it's more intense on the 81, 78 corridor. That's a labor shortage. We can't support and we're having trouble making the connection on. We understand why site locators who represent real estate investment trusts, who are building the big distribution centers, why they like our area. I know I mentioned from a location standpoint, it doesn't get much better than where we are. Having said that, we don't have the labor force to support these projects. We simply don't. We don't have enough people. So when you talk about the immigration issue, it's a real challenging conversation because we don't have enough people to fill the jobs that are being built. We have probably upwards of 20 million square feet in Franklin County right now. We have in Antrim Township alone right now. Antrim Township is the township that surrounds Greencastle. And the interchange that you'd be looking at would be exit 3, the Washington Street exit of Greencastle. In that location, we're looking at about 10 million square feet to be built in the next 3 to 5 years. If you figure, and our rule of thumb is for every million square feet, there'll be 500 jobs that will be required. That's 5,500 jobs in Antrim Township, okay? Washington County, right across in Hagerstown, they're looking at similar numbers, okay? I mentioned Hitachi Rail. That Amazon has taken over Washington County, but they have other companies as well that are moving in. They're looking at similar numbers. We're looking at the possibility between, essentially with 11 miles of 81 and if you started at mile marker 1 in Hagerstown to mile marker 5 in Green, so 16 miles, upwards of 10,000 jobs being created in that location over the next 5 to 7 years, until they're done, 5 to 7 years. We simply can't support that. Well, I don't know what we're gonna do, because that's new stuff. This isn't companies that are looking to expand and grow. It's having a major impact on company decisions to expand or to stay in our area, because it's unsustainable. I mentioned at what will be exit 12, there's gonna be, for those of you familiar, there's gonna be 1 million square feet that goes under construction in Marion starting later this month, or in October rather. At mile marker 12, there'll be upwards of 3 million square feet built, and at least. And we have 1 million square feet up here, and the possibility of more. So you're looking at realistically anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 jobs in Franklin County, another 8,000 to 10,000 jobs in Washington County, probably another 8,000 to 10,000 jobs in Berkeley County. We're simply, we can't sustain that. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So folks are, and I don't know, automation will deal with some of it, but it won't deal with all of it. And so we have a real problem. And I don't know how or why companies are doing what they're doing. And we're very honest with them, and we tell them, we'll help you to the extent that we can, but we simply don't have enough people. The region doesn't have enough people. So that's a major problem. To compound that, affordable housing is an issue. And if you drive around Franklin County, you will, and Cumberland County, you will see housing projects going up everywhere right now. Everywhere. Rental housing, single family housing, ranging from, and by the way, what is affordable housing, that is a relative term, okay? That is a very relative term, because affordable housing to residential home contractors is about $275,000 and up to probably about $400,000. To a lot of working class people, that is not affordable housing. Okay, that is mid-range or upper end housing. So that's going to be a challenge for it. So you're going to see a lot of rental units are being built. The issue with that is rental rates have jumped significantly. There was a time in Chambersburg where you would see rental rates, as an example, being somewhere in the $700 to $800 for probably a 2-bedroom apartment. You at least double that now. The numbers are much higher. We saw the redevelopment of a former high school in Chambersburg, Central Junior High, that was converted from an old high school into essentially loft-style apartments, and they're getting anywhere from $1,300 to $2,000 a month. And so that's how everything has changed fairly significantly. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with increasing interest rates, which will make housing more expensive especially for a lot of first-time buyers. This isn't. I mean, the good news is there's a big job market out there. The bad news is the cost of everything have skyrocketed in our area, and so when folks ask, and if you're looking, by the way, if you want to get into the real estate investment business, and you people will ask us what does it cost to buy an industrial site in the area. So if you're looking at farmland, the most recent number I heard in the Shippensburg area, okay, from a very reputable realtor, called me and said she has a client that has just offered $47 million to buy 235 acres. Okay, think of $47 million to buy 235 acres. Those are numbers that are beyond our comprehension. So when you start to think, it's a new world out here. By the way, and if you probably go down into the Lehigh Valley, those numbers would be, that they've been in that area for a long time. That whole Allentown, yes.
Yeah, my family farm is like huge, and we got it for like $500,000, and it was definitely not 47 million.
Well, it depends where you are. It
Yeah.
clearly depends where you are. But if you're along Interstate 81, that's big. And the other thing we're seeing with a lot of farms, and this goes into the sustainability conversation. A lot of farmland now is being developed into solar farms. And Franklin County is the #1 spot in the state for solar farm development. You have a lot of major players who have developed or are developing, and that is create. I'm going to tell you, it's not universally loved. I'll put it that way. Okay, there's and a lot of municipalities right now are trying to figure out how to deal with the solar question, and develop ordinances as to how to regulate solar. And I know that a ship grad and an attorney, Sam Weiser, who was Sullivan and Hughes, is the most knowledgeable person that I know on that. And he's working with some folks on trying to develop a model ordinance that can be used by municipalities across the state on how to regulate solar investments. But it's yeah, the public is, you'll get mixed reviews on it, but a lot of farmers have taken property and where they are leasing the properties and typically in 25-year leases. But one of the numbers I've seen is it's $2,250 an acre for 25 years. That's with escalators in it. That's a big deal. And especially if you have 100 acres and you're getting $225,000 a year for it beats going out and milking cows. So, but anyway, and that's the reaction we're getting. But anyway, so, but the labor situation, I can't overstate how serious that is in terms of how we're going to manage the growth going forward. The other thing that I will say, and I always talk about, we are located in an area, in a region, where creating economic development isn't our challenge. It's how we manage it in a way that we elevate the quality of life for everybody, that we make our communities, we reinvest in our core downtowns to make them better. And so those are things that have to happen. In Pennsylvania, planning is oftentimes an academic discussion, okay? Because we are a municipally driven state. Land use policies are typically developed at the municipal level. A lot of our municipalities in Franklin County and across the state don't have any land use policy. There's no zoning, and so go for it, and which I think is a horrible way to do it. But when you start looking at it's trying to create collaboration and intermunicipal agreements among municipalities to figure out, look, we're all being impacted here, that we should be consistent in the way that we're doing things. That takes a lot of time, and what you'll find in the planning process in Pennsylvania, too often those intermunicipal agreements are difficult to come by because you have a personality on one side and a personality on the other, and as long as those folks are in disagreement on typically everything, you're not going to move it forward. We have a situation in Antrim Township, in Greencastle. Antrim Township, fastest growing municipality in the county right now. They have a water system. Greencastle, which they surround, has a more developed water system. What we've been trying to do for the last 7 or 8 years is, please, could you merge it? Because we have businesses that are located in the north end of Antrim Township, manufacturing businesses, and future, all they're saying is, we want public water. We don't care who provides it, and we're saying, can't you just merge the system? And the short answer is, well, yeah, we're in favor of merging if we do it under our under our tenets. And the other side, no, we're also in favor if we do it our way. And so to date, nobody's done anything, and that has been it's a problem. And we have a guy that had them both in the room. Said, I don't care who does, I'll pay for it. Just figure it out, and they can't get it figured out. So it's a problem, and that is not a unique situation. That happens across the board. Not only in Franklin County, it'll happen in Cumberland County, it'll happen in Fulton County, Pittsburgh County. That's unfortunately one of the challenges we have. So, and I will tell you, if so we're starting to see, and I think this is important, organizations like ours, we're finally starting to get more involved in downtown redevelopment, which I think is important in creating that quality of life that we're talking about, and our abilities to attract and retain you all to be able to stay in the area. And then you're looking for, the stuff that, it's great to have a job, but you're not going to live at your job. You want to be able to enjoy the other amenities. And I'm going to tell you, if in an ideal world, if I were elected governor, the first thing everybody talks about, the first thing I would be looking to do is reform the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. That would be the absolute first thing I'm doing, because it would affect every community in the state. People will talk about why can't Chambersburg be like Frederick, Maryland? Have you ever been to downtown Frederick? If you have, it is a really cool downtown. A lot of little bistros, a lot of little shops. People love being down there. We can, in Pennsylvania, the way we allocate licenses, liquor licenses, is based on population formulas, and it's a crazy system, and it's like a black market. People will pay $250,000, $300,000, $350,000, $400,000, to wherever you are. We have one in Chambersburg went for $400,000. That's the value of the license. Okay, so if you pay $400,000 for a liquor license, you say, no, all I wanted to do was open up this cool little shop that we can seat 35 people, and we think we can offer them a glass of wine once in a while. You can't do that because you can't afford that upfront cost to make that happen. We need to reform. Every other state in the country seems to have this figured out except us. But that would be the first, because if you can do that, you'll create more investment in our downtowns that will bring people into our downtown. This is not, by the way, this is not to advocate for the sale, for you to go out drinking right after this. But it is an issue that is important to, in my opinion, to community development in the state. And I've got some ideas on how it all could be done. So again, I was in Anniston, Alabama, which is a competitor of Letterkenny, same size as Chambersburg. So, we went into this little restaurant and said, what did you have to pay for your liquor license? $75. Said, what? $75, that's what it costs. We get, that's the state ushers it, and it's not a big deal. And if up here, and by the way, what's happening? So this affects our downtown. Everybody says, we want these restaurants downtown, okay? So, so when you get the restaurant, and in Chambersburg, if you were familiar with EJ's, okay, EJ's was a fairly upscale eating establishment. Giant Foods said, we want to be able to sell alcohol in our store. We'll buy your license. They pay $400,000, and they're living in North Carolina now, and saying thank you very much. And we got the vote, and everything's great. But what we did, we took the restaurant out of town, okay? And I've been in Giant a lot of times. I've yet to see anybody sitting at the bar saying, man, I got a drink while my wife's looking for cold meat, okay? So I think those are things that